light years away, and I think they really are. I think that declares God's glory that the universe is so big. And we see them, so obviously their light has gone from there to here, and it's supposed to take billions of years. Doesn't that prove the universe is billions of years old? I've had people say, well, we got to give up the Bible for that. There's no way you can believe in biblical creation. And of course, the objection itself is rather silly, isn't it? You can't trust in God's word because we can't explain something naturalistically. But God's not limited by natural phenomena, is he? How do we mechanistically explain the resurrection of Christ? If you can't, you say, well, if you can't, well, then God can't do it. That doesn't make any sense. That's illogical. And in any case, I think we do have an answer to this. I don't think it necessarily involves supernatural activity, because we do have natural ways of explaining how God got the light here in thousands of years. It really isn't a problem. It's just people don't know their physics very well, what it comes down to. I do want to point out that many of the proposed solutions that you've heard of, perhaps, just don't work. And I'm sorry I don't have time to go into a lot of detail on that. But just as an example of that, the distances are not real, some people have said. Maybe all the galaxies are just really close. They're all within, 6,000 light years. But that's just not realistic. The methods by which we use to measure the distances of these galaxies are very good methods. They're good scientific methods. They're not based on evolutionary thinking. And creationists and evolutionists agree on that. Some have said, well, maybe the speed of light was a lot greater in the past. And so the light zipped along and then slowed down, and we're just assuming that the rates have been constant. And that was a good thing to check, because sometimes evolutionists assume constancy of rates when they're really not constant at all. But in this case, I think there are good reasons to think the speed of light has been constant throughout time. It's actually, it relates to the strength of electric and magnetic fields and so on, and it's doubtful that you could change the speed of light very much and have matter actually be stable. So I think there's a good reason for that. One of the ones that is really common is people have said, well, maybe God made the light beams already on their way. And there are aspects of that I like, but I don't think that's going to work. And I want to show you just in a little more detail why this one is problematic. If you believe that God created the stars and the light beams, already connecting them to the earth, and that has a certain appeal, because God did make the universe mature. It was fully functional. Adam and Eve, he made as adults. They didn't need to grow to that from a baby. Maybe the light's like that. It's got a certain appeal to it. But it requires God to create fictional images in movies. Let me give you an example of this. We have a supernova 1987A. If you would have pointed your telescopes at the Large Magellanic Cloud in 1987, in January, you would have seen, before January, you've seen a little blue star right there. Actually a pretty big blue star, but it's far away. And so you see it right there. And then in early 1987, that star blew itself to bits, and so it became very bright as the energy was released from that exploding star, supernova. And that happened in one of the Magellanic Clouds, a satellite galaxy that's 163,000 light years away. Which means in secular thinking, that happened 163,000 years ago. And you'd say, oh no, God just made a beam with a picture of that event in it. Then that means that event never happened. It was just a picture, a movie that God creates in a beam of light about 6,000 light years out that finally reached Earth in 1987. If you believe in the light in transit hypothesis, this star never existed, despite the fact that I have a picture of it right there. Problem. Today it looks like that. We've got these, you can see the expanding material as it gets bigger and bigger every year, as it expands out. You're seeing basically expanding star guts. What's left of that little star as it exploded couldn't handle the pressure. And that gets a little bigger every year. Now, should we bother studying that? Because maybe it's not even real. Maybe it's just a picture that God made in the beam of light.
In 1987, it exploded, and that's it today.
It's not a question of what God can do. Of course God can do that. That's not the issue. The question is, would he? Is it consistent with his nature? That's my problem with that. If light in transit is true, none of these things actually existed. And you might say, well, I don't have a problem with that. I think God would create fictional images. Careful. Because how do you know I'm here right now? Yeah? Well, we can see, well, yeah, but God made the beam of light 1 inch away from your eye. Well, we can hear you too, Dr. Lau. That's okay. God made the sound 1 inch away from your ear. How do you know you're not a brain in a jar? And God's just feeding you all the sensory input? This takes away from the reality of the universe that God has created. And I don't think it's necessary. I think we do have some better explanations. My colleague, again, Russ Humphreys, pointed out that time dilation might solve the distant starlight problem. And the idea is that clocks can flow at different rates in different environments. I'm not going to get into details on that. I don't think it's ultimately the right answer, but it's a brilliant attempt, and he continues to work on that. And it's not a problem having competing models. That's what science is all about. We want to have different competing models, because eventually one of them wins out. Truth tends to surface when you have